For this format of this meeting, it is a 10-minute speaker and our secretary's announcements, a coffee and snack break, and our main speaker. Our first speaker tonight is Sid.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sid, and I'm a very grateful member of Alcoholics Anonymous. Sid. I want to say, in 1983 is when I first got sober for the first time. I was 15 years old. Matter of fact, the Llano Club in Hermosa Beach is where I went. It just had opened up. I was a part of a program called PADAP. At 15, Palmer Drug Abuse Program, but it wasn't quite working for me. I needed something else, and then that club opened up, and I found what I needed. I want to turn my book around here. I just want to thank all the people, back then that are, whether they're around or not, that have touched my heart and planted the seed which got me to where I am now, over 4 decades later. Back then I started hearing stuff, but I figured that all this, the meetings and the fellowship, is what I needed. That is what was going to cure me, was going to stop my problem and give me a good life. But that's not what happened. I started with a sponsor, and the sponsor started running me through some steps, and I decided I was going to pick and choose which ones I decided I wanted. And when it came to God, I had my own conception of a God then, and it was a punishing God. It was a God that caused me a lot of heartache as a kid and a lot of medical problems, and so I wasn't going to turn anything over to him. The only thing that I thought I owed him is to continue with my own will, because he gave me that, and he wanted me to continue with my own will and run my life, So, I surrounded myself in the fellowship and did a lot of service, and, kind of was involved in a lot of self. A lot of me, a lot of self, using all of you guys to make me feel better. Because, I would go to a meeting, and I would feel better. And then I would go home, and shortly after that, I would start feeling bad again. So, I'd make a phone call and talk to somebody, and I'd say blah, 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 and they'd like, me too, and we'd both go back and forth, me too. And then after I got off that phone, a little while after that, I started feeling bad again. So I'd run to another meeting, and start sharing not about the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, which is in this book. Started sharing about self and, whining and crying and all that trauma, and I'd leave that meeting and I'd still feel bad. And my only solution then was to drink. That's the solution I knew. That's what worked for me. That's what took all that away from me. So, I want to talk about my solution now, and my solution along this road, this journey that I'm on, and the solution is God, and that's what our book says, My concept has changed and grown. It wasn't until, 2008, the beginning of 2009, when I had a great tour guide, and we were going through Bill's story, and when Ebby Thatcher sat down with Bill at that table and said, hey, why don't you pick your own conception of God? The light bulbs went in. So, I had came, on December 17th, 2008. And then at that point, when I actually had someone show me line by line to where I understood, then I came, I came to, and the light bulb started going on in my head. And then I got to come to believe, that I could change what I believed God was. That God was no longer that mean, punishing God. That God wanted the best for me. And that God's true will for me was to act like him, Goodness, sorry, podiums. But throughout the years, I've learned, I've got to learn to put all that aside. I'm a prayer, and I'm starting a journey and learning how to meditate really well, and I've learned when things happen that I give it to God. And when I give it to God and just forget about it, okay, it is what it is. Here you go, God. I say that prayer, and then I just forget about it. I'm not on the phone harping. I'm not complaining. I'm not whining. Then good things happen, and the results are usually in my favor, if not always. But when I'm there complaining and cursing and trying to manipulate the situation, and I'm in self, and I'm taking back all that will that I had given God, then things are disastrous, and the outcomes are just so much different. And then I'm not feeling good anymore, and I'm not doing what I'm supposed to. And as it says in our book here on page 85, it says it's easy to let up on spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels. And that's when I give my will back. And I say, you know what, I've been doing this for so long, I got this. And that's what gets me in trouble, every time. And I have to think. What's going to get me out of that. And just, in the next paragraph, this is it. It says, how can I best serve thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. And then I get to do, our primary purpose. I get to do the best for God and to our fellows, And it's those times when I start to feel, like the four horsemen, I feel a terror and bewilderment and frustration and despair. And I start feeling like that, and I know what to do, I get to do a 10-step inventory every day. And then I get to talk to somebody about it, and I get to pray about it. And if I've harmed somebody, I get to immediately make amends for that after I've had counsel with God and my sponsor, And that's the important stuff. And because of all that, my relationship with God is new. And I never thought I could have a new relationship with God. And, that's what this book is all about. It's about getting us to God, building that relationship, and being of service to everybody that we can, including God. Because the only way I can get out of myself and the only way I can feel better about any situation is immediately grab somebody to work with. I go to meetings, and I go there for different reasons now. I go to meetings, and I go and I look for people, look for the people looking down, look for the people that are confused, look for the people that are just like, what do I do, or that are shaking their head. And I get to work with a lot of those people, and I get that privilege. And, that keeps me alive, and that ensures me staying sober. That's my relapse prevention. And no matter what's going on with me when I'm working with somebody else, kneecap to kneecap, by the end of it, the end of that day or the end of that time, I don't realize it, but I feel good, and all that stuff that was on my mind or all that stuff that was weighing me down is gone. And, that's the miracle of it. I don't think God's talked about enough in meetings, and that's my main goal is to share my experience, and my experience what has got me here for almost 15 years now, out of the last 42 or 43 years that I've been trying. And the only thing that has helped me is God. And God has put all of you in my life. God has put my friends in my life. God just directs me. But as soon as I take all that back, like I said, I'm going to the wrong places. I'm going to the wrong people. I'm thinking, well, I can flip this guy off, or I can cuss at this person, or I can hang out over here even when I'm not spiritually fit, And I need to be spiritually fit. And I'll tell you, one of my favorite parts here, and I just lost my place. is when therefore we have approached by those whom the problem had been solved, there was nothing left for us to do but pick up the simple kit of spiritual tools laid at our feet. We have found much of heaven, and we have been rocketed into the fourth dimension of existence, of which we had ever dreamed. And then to go to page 8, in Bill's story, he describes that. And it says, I was soon to be catapulted into what I like to call the fourth dimension of existence. I was to know happiness, peace, and usefulness in a way of life that is incredibly more wonderful as time passes. And, I get goosebumps and shivers when I read that, because that's how it is for me. That's where I'm at. Before, I read that and it's like, what is this? Is this for real? But it is, But I think that's my 10 minutes. Am I done? Well, I thank you all for being here and putting up with me, and I hope you all got something good out of that.
Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Now our main speaker will share his experience, strength, and hope with us. Please join me in welcoming Michael B. from Corona.
I'll straighten that up, Carl, don't worry. My name's Michael Berg. I'm an alcoholic. And I'm from Covina, not Corona. Big difference. You know it.
Has a phone number.
We're
Somebody
going
was actually
to-
on the meeting. We are muted. We can't hear you.
Oh, I'm muted? I'm sorry. Yeah, I think they are.
I forgot. Excuse me.
It's okay. Oh, there we go.
Okay.
Hi on Zoom. We good now? Good. You just missed a heck of a lot. It was great. Probably the best it's going to be for the rest of the night. So, anyways, I want to thank you all for having me out. Sid, that was a great time. I love a good story about what happens when I start working my program of Alcoholics Anonymous and not the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. So thank you for that. I met Sid and Sherilyn a little over a year ago up in Oregon. Whenever I speak out of town, I always say, hey, if you're ever in my neck of the woods, give me a call. We'll go to a meeting. I don't mean it. I don't mean it. I just say it to be nice. I just want to look nice, look like I'm a nice guy. I don't really mean it, but last week Sid called me and said, "Hey, we're gonna be in town. Let's go to a meeting." So now I gotta find a meeting that I'm gonna like going to. And then Kelly calls me this week, asked me to come speak to you guys. So I thought, well, I'm gonna love that meeting. You guys might not, but I will. I'm gonna love this meeting. And so yeah, so it's great. We've had a great night. I love it. My sobriety date is November 26, 2009. I'm in that mode, that time frame mode where I'm like, well, 14 years ago, this time, I was sleeping underneath a park bench in a park across the street from Hollywood Bowl, looking at all the losers sleeping on the street because I had a roof over my head still, and That's just thank God for the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12 steps. My sponsor is Carl. He's in the room tonight, so thank me. You can send your complaints to him. He recently told me that I'm his greatest teacher of love and tolerance. Now I know that's not a compliment. I know, but I took it as I'm his greatest spiritual teacher. So that's how I took that. And my home group is the Covina Sunday night speaker meeting on Sundays. So that's it. that's the talk. It's all downhill from here. What I should tell you guys is that, I don't know, if being alcoholic is predicated on how you grew up, a broken home, an abusive childhood, then by all means, I shouldn't be here tonight. I grew up in a very loving home. I have a sister. She's a couple years older than me. And just growing up, our parents, they filled our house with a lot of love. They surrounded us with a lot of loving people. And my mom is a third-generation Japanese-American woman. She was a hippie in the 60s and 70s. There you go. She used to, there's always one or two in the crowd, I love it. She used to hitchhike up to San Francisco on the weekends and go to the free concerts in the park put on by Bill Graham Presents. In elementary school, knew the definitive difference between Billy Graham and Bill Graham. That did not impress my teachers one bit. But and my dad's a white guy who was a deacon at a Lutheran church. I'm not sure who was trying to convert who when those two met, but their marriage is the result of a joint, a Bible, and the conception of my sister. And that's pretty sure I have the order down right, too. Growing up was always kind of weird at my house because on Saturday nights, the hippie commune would come over. And they'd party, and then on Sunday mornings, we'd be in church. I don't know if any of you have been to a Lutheran service before, but they could take a word like hallelujah, which is like born from celebration and jubilee, and just, get a hallelujah. It's like having a conversation with a junkie, It really prepared me later in life when I was talking to some people going, no, there's a message in there somewhere. I know it. They'll get to it, But I got drunk for the very first time when I was 12 years old. A friend of mine spent the night at my house, and we got into my parents' liquor cabinet, and we started taking swigs of vodka. Now, I don't know. I don't remember, for me, there was no aha moment at that moment, right? The heavens didn't part for me. I didn't get any taller. I didn't get any cuter. I was cute enough as a 12-year-old. But what I do remember very vividly from that night was that there was this driving force behind that bottle. I could not stop taking swigs of vodka. Now, the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, which Astrid is selling at the end of the night, right? It calls this the phenomenon of craving. And it tells me that I have an allergy of the body. Okay, I'm a pretty healthy guy, right? I'm not allergic to cats, bee stings, or strawberries. And if I was allergic to any one of those things, I wouldn't own a cat. I would avoid bees at all costs, and I certainly wouldn't eat strawberries. But there's this other part to this disease that we call alcoholism, and that's the obsession of the mind. And that's that thing in me that's going to talk me into drinking against my will every single time. This obsession of the mind, it's also that thing in me that's going to make it impossible for me to get comfortable sober. And I got to tell you, before I came to Alcoholics Anonymous and started working these 12 steps, those were the two things that I had been trying to get to converge on my life at the same time. I was either comfortable, which meant I was really drunk, or I was sober. And that meant that I was restless, irritable, and discontent. This allergy that I spoke of, it only occurred in me that night. My friend, he had a swig and a half, coughed, and then went to bed. But, man, I just kept taking swigs. I would take another swig and just, okay, I'll go to bed. One more swig and I'll go to bed, and keep going. And high school for me was high. It was just that. It was just high. I was one of those kids, in the back alley of school with the others were, smoking cigarettes, pot, and, taking turns, raiding our parents' liquor cabinet that morning, in the spirit of rotation and all. you see the lessons we learn even as young children. We get in here. Oh, I understand the spirit of rotation very well. But that's how I spent. And in high school, I was a pretty popular guy. I guess I had friends. I knew a lot of people. But I never felt like I fit in. I never felt like I fit in unless I was drinking. I mean, you get a couple of drinks in me, and I fit in with the freaks, the geeks, the jocks, and the sluts. I'm in with everybody. Especially the sluts. By the time that I was 22 years old, I'm drinking in bars and nightclubs on a daily and a nightly basis, and already at this time in my life, I know I'm fully aware that when I go into a bar or nightclub and I start drinking, I'm going to be unavailable for the next 2 days, a week, a month. I just don't know which one it's going to be. And what's happening at this time in my life is exactly what the Big Book talks about, that I have lost the power of choice in drink. Like, I was no longer in control. My mind was just using me as transportation to the next drink. And of course, when you're drinking as much as I was, blackouts occur, and I had my fair share of them. And I never came out of a blackout and my taxes were done, or like my laundry was neatly folded and put away. Never. I always came to out of blackouts in places and situations that I really, really didn't want to be in. I came out of a blackout one time, and I was in bed, completely naked, with a naked woman. And the only reason I wanted out of that situation is because I'm gay. And that's not funny, you guys. Like, I didn't know what I was for a couple of days, okay? Am I them, or maybe I'm not, Well, Dad's going to be proud of me. Dad wasn't proud. He was just as confused as I was. You guys ever come out of a blackout and wish that you can go back into it? Like you come out of a blackout and you're like, and you close your eyes real tight and you squeeze, and hoping you can go back into it. You figure okay, my blacked out mind got us into this mess. Maybe it can get us out of it. I remember one time I came out of this blackout. It was about 3:30 in the morning. I'm driving my car in South Central, and there's a bum putting cologne on in the passenger seat of my car. And I'm just like, squeeze, I try to go back into it, I slammed there, got him out of the car, I got out of there. I just realized, I'm hoping that one day I will understand my blacked out consciousness that at whatever moment it decided to go, him, let's pick him up. He looks like he knows how to have a good time. I got in a relationship a little time after this with a guy. He was going to law school, and he hated my drinking, really, right out of the gate. Just hated my drinking, and so we got engaged. And I know, it was like two peas in a pod, right? I used to hide little bottles of booze and flasks all throughout the apartment, and he would go through, he would find them and throw them away. It was this really sick and toxic game of hide and seek that nobody liked. And I would start fights with him on purpose, because when we fought, he made me sleep on the couch, and he never found that one bottle that I had underneath the couch, tucked way to the back and to the right, and so there was this one night that oh gosh, I just needed to drink, and it was just one of those nights, and so. I knew at this time I was good. I knew what buttons to press to get right into an argument and a fight, and I did. I went at it, and we're just going back and forth. And now he's got arguments with points A, B, and C. So those law classes are really paying off. And the next thing he does, he grabs his pillow and his blanket and he storms out of the room. I'm like, where are you going? He goes, I'm sleeping on the couch tonight. And I'm like, wait, no! Let's work this out. I'm sorry. And so now, like, I'm pacing back and forth, and I'm like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And a little while later, I can hear, like, him breathing heavily, like he's asleep. So like 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm doing the SEAL Team 6 crawl across the living room floor, and I'm on this mission, and I'm like, got my arm deep underneath the couch, and I'm like, it's to the back and to the right, but is that my right or his right? And all of a sudden I hear this, I threw it away, now go to bed, and I'm like, oh! Yeah, it was a long, difficult night. There was this one evening that we had made dinner. We were just having a really nice evening. We had made dinner, and we were going to watch a movie at home, and we were just having a really nice night. We were laughing, talking, getting along so well, and I remember we were doing the dishes, and I'm thinking to myself, gosh, this night is going well. I'm doing so good. I haven't drank anything. I haven't needed a drink. God, I'm doing so good. I remember I'm washing the dishes, and then the next thought was, Michael, you have been doing good. You should go get yourself a drink. And I'm like, yeah, but there's nothing in the house. There's nothing in the house. How am I going to do that? And I started thinking, well, we can go get some popcorn. And real quick, we could duck into the bar and get a drink. And I'm like, that's a brilliant idea. And so I said, babe, I'll be right back. I'm going to go get some popcorn for the movie. I'll be back in 3 minutes, And the bar that I used to drink at used to be in the same shopping center as a grocery store. So I remember I get into the parking lot, and the plan I was just going to run into the bar, have a shot, and then run into the grocery store, get some popcorn, go home. 3 minutes, it's a perfect plan. So I ran to the bar, ordered a shot, let me have a shot, and took a shot, and I looked at my watch, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that wasn't even 90 seconds. This is great timing. Give me one more shot. I'll do one more. One more. Take another shot, and look at my watch, and we're at 1:40. We're at about 2 minutes, and I'm like, okay, I could do one more. I could do just real quick, one more, and I took one more shot, and I think I got home around 3:30 in the morning, and the bedroom door was locked, of course, and I just passed out on the couch, and I remember coming to the next morning and walking into the kitchen, and there he was, sitting at the kitchen table with that look in his face, that look that I'm so familiar with, not only from him, but from that I've seen from so many people in my life. Anybody who had any amount of love or concern or care for me had that look at some time in my life, and it's that look of, how could you do this? And he asked me point blank, he said, how could you do this again? You promised you wouldn't do this. How could you do this to me again? And I don't know. I don't know if I was just too hungover, too tired, or just out of excuses. But for some reason that morning I told him the truth. And the truth was, I don't know. Because I don't know. I don't know why when I drink, I'm dying to have another drink. And when I'm not drinking, all I'm thinking about is drinking again. I don't know these things. I'm not going to know these things until I come to you guys, and you take me through the doctor's opinion, and you teach me about the allergy of the body and the obsession of the mind. But until then, it's just, I just don't know. I have no clue. And I told him that, and the next thing he said was, well, it's either me or the booze. And without hesitation, I said, then you've got to go. You've got to go. Because make no mistake about it, if you get in the way of me and booze, it's you that has to go, not the booze. Although I probably should have thought about it a little bit longer, because he's now an attorney for Google. Yeah, that one hurts. That could have been a nice divorce, Mm-hmm. Oh, gosh. Shortly after this, I moved to the San Fernando Valley, where my neighbors, they learned they were living next to the town drunk, because for some reason, in the middle of the night, I would park my car on their lawns. I don't know what that was a very angry knock, though, on a Sunday morning. And sometime around 2006, now my parents divorced when I was 20. And my dad got remarried some years later, and I was the best man at his wedding. And so around this time, I'm doing a mixture of just to get me through like an event like this or whatever. I'm overshooting the mark. I've got a flask. I've got a flask with me, a flask down here, and some uppers right here. And so the whole wedding, I'm taking shots out of my flask, and I'm overshooting the mark on that, so I'm a little too low, so I pick myself up, So the entire wedding, I'm doing this up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down thing, and everybody's going like, what is going on with Michael, And so by the time that the reception rolls around and it's time for me to give my speech, I am in a full blackout. And I'm told that I said things like, I called her a wicked stepmother. Oh yeah, hang tight, guys, it gets worse. I called her a gold digger. Which is funny because my dad's not even rich. Not even by a long shot, you guys. And around this time, my family's realizing that there's a problem because I'm slowly returning to my birth weight, which is a sultry 96 pounds. And around 2000, the middle of 2006, I was driving up to San Luis Obispo at like 2:30 in the morning, as we do, and I was pulled over. They found some outside issues in my car, and they arrested me, and they took me to jail. And I remember sitting in jail that weekend, and sitting in that cell, and I was not thinking, my God, look at where I'm at. This is a direct result of the actions that I have been taking. I need to change. I was not thinking that. What I was thinking was, I just spent really good money on that 8-ball, and I'm not going to be able to smoke it. Over the course of the next 3 years, I'd be arrested about a dozen or so more times. Those days and nights that I was in jail, those would be the only days and nights that I would draw a sober breath. I was never far from a drink or anything. And so by the middle of 2009, my powerlessness and unmanageability has now taken me to the streets of Hollywood. I'm turning tricks in a motel parking lot, but my life is so unmanageable, I can't even manage to show up for work. Nobody likes a whore that doesn't show up for work, And what's happening in my life is at this time in my life, it's the classic that we read about, it's where I cannot differentiate the truth from the false. And the truth in my life at this time is that I'm participating in things I don't want to participate in, with people I don't want to be doing these things with. And the false is what I'm telling myself, is that I can leave whenever I want to. I just don't want to, And in October of 2009, I was arrested once again. And once again, I'm up in front of that judge, and the judge is reading charges. He's violating my probation again, and then he says, "I'm done with you." He slides my folder to the side, and he starts sentencing me to a year in jail, and he stops mid-sentence, and he says, "But I'll let you serve your time if you go to a sober living." And I'm like, it's like this. This is a weird phrase here, like this sober living, right? These are two words I've never heard side by side each other before, right? In a sentence, right? Sober living, right? Because okay, living, all I'm doing at this time in my life is existing, okay? And sober, well, the only thing that I know about sobriety is that it's an absolute nightmare. Absolute nightmare. I mean, you take alcohol away from me, and it's like you're holding me underwater, and I can't breathe. And I need to breathe. I need to survive. I need to drink. That judge gave me 30 days to be checked into a sober living, be back in his courtroom and be clean and sober, or else he'd put me in jail for a year. And over the course of the next 30 days, I'd come to know the cunning, baffling, powerful nature of this disease that we call alcoholism. And that's the baffling nature of drinking while trying so desperately hard not to drink, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. And on November 25th of 2009, my sister, she found me on the streets of Hollywood, and she took me to a sober living. And I'll be forever grateful that the sober living's primary purpose was to drop me off in the center of Alcoholics Anonymous and show me how to do it. Now, I would love to stand before you tonight, Sanctuary Group, and tell you that I just launched into this course of rigorous action, but I didn't. You know, I just went to meetings and with my arms folded and looking at the ground, you know, and I remember I was about 30 days sober, and this guy starts sharing, and he's sharing behind me. He's sitting behind me, and he starts sharing about that voice that's in his head. I'm thinking like, oh my God, this guy's crazy. This guy's insane. This guy's crazy, right? Voice in his head, you know, and he starts sharing like, you know, how you have it too, and I'm like thinking, okay, now this guy's trying to take us down. Well, I see what this AA is all about, you know, what voice, you know, and he says, if you're wondering what I'm talking about, it's that voice that just went, what voice? And I just spun around, like, I'm like, what? Like, what? You know, like, are you kidding me? Like that voice? That's the voice that's been there my entire life. You know, that's the voice that's been talking me to into drinking against my will every single time. And you know, it's been telling me things like, you know what, Michael, it's that bar and those people that are getting you into trouble. We need to find another bar, you know, or it's that voice that's been telling you, you know what, Michael, you're more fun when you drink, you know, or that voice that always tells me, you know what, Michael, tonight we're just gonna have one drink, you know, and now you're telling me that you have it too, like I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it, you know, and that voice, it got a little bit quieter that night. And I started to get a little bit more comfortable, but you know, I didn't follow it up with any action. I didn't get into any of these steps. I didn't open up the big book and read it at all. I just returned to meetings, folding my arms and looking at the ground, you know, and so I'm 60 days sober, and you know, I'll tell you this. I came out of the closet when I was 16 years old, and since then, you know, I've participated in rallies. I've marched on our state capitol. I've held signs that I've said, just because I'm gay, that doesn't make me any different than you. But then suddenly I get sober and I get to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm like, oh, wait a second. I'm different than you guys are. You don't understand me. I'm different than you people are, you know? And so I'm 60 days sober, and all this stuff's going around in my head, and I remember I'm at this meeting, and this guy's sharing, right? And I can't tell you what he said before this, and I definitely can't tell you what he said after this. But what I heard him say that day was that this is Alcoholics Anonymous. And here we look for the similarities and not the differences. Because when you start looking at the differences, you'll see yourself as different, and you'll difference yourself right out those doors. And the same program of Alcoholics Anonymous that worked for me is not going to work for you. You know? And I heard that day. I heard it. And you know, that voice, it got a little bit quieter. And I got a little bit more comfortable. But again, I didn't follow it up with any action. I didn't call a sponsor that I had. I didn't ask him to take me through the steps. I wasn't praying. I just returned to meetings with my arms folded, looking at the ground. You know? So now I'm 90 days sober. There's been no spiritual experience. There's been no change sufficient enough to bring about recovery, and I'm going absolutely insane. I'm going insane. It's time for me to go. And what's happening is I've just got my arms folded, looking at the ground, not listening to the message of Alcoholics Anonymous, and what you guys are telling me. And what you guys are telling me is that I have a spiritual sickness, right? This spiritual malady that I have. My soul is sick, right? And instead of treating it with the synthetic experience of alcohol, I need to be treating it with the spiritual experience of the 12 steps. And I'm not doing any of that. And so I'm 92 days sober. I'll never forget this. I was 92 days sober. I'm at this meeting, and I'm taking this chip for 90 days. And, you know, and I go up and I take this chip, and, you know, where everybody's like, oh, yes, that's wonderful. Oh, keep coming back, you know. And I'm like, you know, because that's really how I was when I was new. And I start walking back to my seat, and I'm walking back, and this woman, she stands up, she gets in my path, and she puts her hands on my shoulders, and she's squeezing. She goes, "You are the miracle," you know, and I just wanted to throw punch her and throw her on the ground, kick her a couple times, and I wanted to run out of that meeting. I wanted to run a block away to the liquor store and drink. That's all I knew how to do. That's all I knew how to do to change the way that I was feeling. I didn't know any other way. I remember I sat down, and I'm just so angry. I'm seething, mad, and my fists are clenched so tight. And the guy sitting next to me goes, "Bro, you need to call your sponsor." I'm like, "I will throat punch you too, man. Just start with me, you know." And I did. I'd taken the most contrary action that I'd ever taken in my life, and I did something that somebody else told me to do, and I called my sponsor. And I'm so grateful that the man that I asked to sponsor me at 14 days sober, because I had to get a sponsor, was a man who knew his responsibility in Alcoholics Anonymous. And that is when the hand of a dying alcoholic reaches out and asks you for help, that you are the one that's responsible. That man came over to my sober living that night, and he took me through steps 1, 2, and 3. I remember he left me that night, and as he was leaving, he looked into my eyes. Man, he looked right into my alcoholic soul, and he said, Michael, there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. Go find God now. You know, I just love that portion in chapter 5 that we read. You know, it's telling us when to find God. It's not telling us to find God next week. It's not telling us to find God, when you're on a hike, and just as the sun hits the horizon and lights up the sky. No. It's not telling us to find God after this meeting or when you're ready. It's telling us to find God now, because this is where God is, right here, right now, in this moment. I went to bed that night, and I did something I hadn't done since I was a little boy, and I got down on my knees and I prayed. And I prayed to a God that I didn't have, but to a God that I so desperately needed. And I said, God, please, I will do anything, just please keep me sober. One of my favorite speakers is a guy by the name of Paul McHugh, and I love what Paul says. Paul says, when I say my name and I'm an alcoholic, that tells me who I am, what I am, where I am, and what I need to do. When I was 92 days sober, I had no clue what I needed to do. You guys took me by the hands and you showed me precisely what to do. And, and my sponsor, he didn't sit me down and go, okay, Michael, these are the 12 steps, and we're going to do this, and this, and that, and that. He didn't, He got me a big book, and we sat down and we read it. And when we got to a step, we'd work it. And it didn't take a long conversation to convince me that I had this insane relationship to alcohol. Do you know the incomprehensible and demoralizing things that I have done to drink? And the next day, when the thought would come to drink again, I would just beg myself not to drink again. Please, no, not after what I did last night, please. And it wouldn't matter, because I'd be drunk. I'd be drunk by the night's end. So it didn't take long to convince me of this insanity that you guys were talking about. And then to make this decision to turn my will and my life over to care to God as I understood. Really, that didn't take long either. Because, as I started to think about, deciding, this will, my sponsor kind of interrupted my thought, and he said, look, Michael, how many decisions have you made in your life and not followed through with it? And I'm like, excuse me, are you saying I do not have integrity? I don't think I have to tell you what my sponsor's answer was, but we'd go through these things, and then we'd read a little bit more, and then we got down on our knees, we said this prayer, we read a little bit more, and we get to the part, and we read, and dealing with resentments, we set them on paper, and my sponsor, he closed the book, he said, okay, Michael, he gave me a notebook and a pen, he said, I want you to write down everybody you're mad at and tell me why. And I'm like, finally, this is the greatest program ever. This is great, because look, I have been waiting my entire life for somebody to sit me down and go, okay, Michael, tell me everyone you're mad at and why, right? This is the greatest thing, And we just followed along in the big book as it instructed me to do these things. And then on one Sunday morning, he's picking me up. And he takes me to his house, and over the course of the next 5 hours, I'm admitting the exact natures of my wrong. And we begin to build a new me, a human being that's built on a foundation of spiritual principles. And if you're new, I want to welcome you. And I want to tell you, look, some weird things might happen around here, but you just got to go with it, I remember, I remember I was standing outside the local Alano club that I got sober at in Covina, and I remember I'm smoking a cigarette. It's kind of long after the meeting has ended, parking lot's kind of empty, and I'm smoking this cigarette, and I'm just being cool, as we newcomers are. And I remember this car that drives up in the parking lot, and they roll their window down, and this guy goes, "Hey, kid, work your third step and get in the car." And I'm like, okay, so do I work my third step and then go into his car? Do I get into his car and then work my third step? And he's not my sponsor. Can I cross-sponsor and do my third step again like that? And, he's seen all this stuff bounce around in my newcomer head, and he's like, "Hey, kid, get in the car." Now, when I was in the third grade, this cop came to our school, right? And he gathered us all into assembly, right? And he said, "I promise this is going to happen to one of you. One day, a man's going to pull up in a car, he's going to roll his window down, he's going to say, 'Hey, kid, get in the car.' And the only thing that you are to do is scream and run." And I froze. Like I couldn't believe that this was happening. There were 100 kids at that assembly that day, and this was happening to me. I was like, all right. So I got in the car. Let's see what Officer so-and-so didn't want us to experience. And I remember we're going, and I'm like, "Hey, where are we going?" And he says, "I'm taking you on a panel." I'm like, "Oh, what?" He goes, "I'm taking you to an institution." And I'm like, "I knew it. I knew you guys were up to something, and I'm trying to get out of the car." And he's like, "Relax, kid. Relax. We're taking a meeting to a group of people who are in an institution who can't get outside to a meeting." And that's just what I started to do. I just started to get in the car. I'd get in the car and we'd go hear your sponsor speak somewhere, or I'd get in the car and we'd go to a weekend big book workshop somewhere, or I'd get in the car and we'd go on a 12-step call. And then one day I got in the car and it changed the course of my life. I was about 5 months sober, and I got in the car, and these guys, they were taking me up to Big Bear to this men's spiritual retreat, and I don't remember much from that weekend. I'm sure it was very spiritual, but what I remember from that weekend and what changed my life that weekend was I shared a room with this guy named John Melbar, and John and I became dear friends, and he died about 5 years ago, tragically, but he died sober, and I remember this Saturday night up in Big Bear, and it was about 11:50, and I was just so in awe of John this night, because on this particular night, in 10 minutes at the stroke of midnight, John was going to get 1 year sober. Right? Now, screw you guys with your 10s, your 20, your 30 years sober, right? That's unattainable to me. Right? But here, right in front of me, is John, and he's going to get 1 year sober. Right? I couldn't believe it. It was so cool to me, and I'm firing off all these questions, how do you feel? Do you feel any different? Where were you exactly 1 year ago today? And he's answering all of them, and we got quiet because I wanted to ask him this one question, but I was really scared of what his reply was going to be, and so I mustered enough courage, and I asked him. I said, "John, do you think I can get 1 year sober?" And if you knew John was he was a meticulous guy, right? He always thought about the question before he would respond, and I remember he kind of folded his arms and a little bit, and he sat there and he stroked his goatee that he had, and he said, "Well, I'm just doing what the guys before me have done. So I suppose if you do what I do, and I keep doing what they do, then yeah, you can get 1 year sober too." Did you hear that? Did you hear what John told me that night? John told me that night that if you do what I do, you'll live. If you do what I do, you will live. Can you say that? Are you living your life in a way that you can tell a newcomer, "Do what I do and you'll live"? John was. John was absolutely living his life in a way where he can tell a newcomer, me, "Do what I do and you'll live." So I did. I followed John everywhere. I did exactly what John was doing. And as it turns out, John was just doing 5 things. Number 1, John was going to meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. Number 2, John had commitments at those meetings. Number 3, John had a sponsor at those meetings. Number 4, John was working his steps with that sponsor. And number 5, and most importantly, John was trying to help other alcoholics. And by doing those 5 things, what happened was I was living my life in the center of Alcoholics Anonymous. And no matter what goes on in my life today, I treat my alcoholism first, and then I deal with the rest. When I was 7 years sober, I tested positive for HIV. And I remember, boy, life got different just like that. And I remember a friend of mine went to get tested. He was really nervous to go alone, so I went with him. And it had been 6 months since my last test, so I figured, why not? I'll do it too. And they took us back. They do a mouth swab, take a little bit of blood, and they make you wait in a waiting room for like 20 minutes to think about the last 6 months of your sex inventory. And it's a fun 20 minutes if you've ever been there. And then they called my friend back, and he came out a couple minutes later, gave me the double thumbs up, so we were like, whew, and then I went back there, and they pulled me into a room, and the woman in there, she said, your first test came back reactive, and so we took a closer, more conclusive look at your blood, and it confirmed that you have HIV, and I just wanted her to stop. I wanted her to stop because I stopped long enough to not make this true. I wanted her to stop long enough so that this instant fear that was taking over my life suddenly would go away. I just wanted her to stop so that my life wouldn't change. And I left, and it was a Friday. It was a Friday night, and I remember I just kept walking to my car. So what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And on this particular Friday night, I had a literature commitment at a meeting in Santa Monica, and the only reason I was a literature guy at that meeting was because the former literature guy wouldn't show up a lot, and he always carried the literature. And I think it's very irresponsible to have a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous with no literature. So I expressed this at our business meeting, and a bunch of people raised their hand and made me the literature guy. And I said, fine, I will take this commitment, and I will be the best. I will show up each and every week with our literature. I'll be the best literature guy, and here we are on a Friday night. And all I want to do is I want to hide from you, I want to hide from myself, and I want to hide from God. But I just made this huge stink at my business meeting, right? So I went to my meeting, I set up the literature, and I don't remember anything about that meeting, only that I just kept thinking to myself, what am I going to do? What is my life going to be like now? What is going to happen to me? All just stuck in self. And at the end of our meeting, we took a moment of silence for the alcoholic who still suffers, and I just said, God, please remove this fear and direct my attention to what you would have me be. And my next thought or intuition was, there are 3 brand newcomers who raised their hands. I bet you they don't have a big book. So I bought those 3 newcomers a big book, and I told them when we were going to read it. I don't ask newcomers. When you ever ask a newcomer if they want to read the big book, they're like, I have to pick up my mom from space. It's like they got like these brilliant excuses, right? And I'll die drunk if I'm waiting on a newcomer. I tell them when we're going to read the book, and that's just what I did, because it was you guys. You guys were the ones that told me that when all else fails, Michael, you work with another alcoholic. And it works. And it works. I'm here to tell you that you could stay sober too no matter what. I'll kind of end with this. The latest thing in my life is I've got this 4-year-old nephew. I just love him to death. I was there when he was born, and the minute I laid eyes on that kid, the first thing that went through my mind was that it is so much more important for me to stay sober. And I love this kid. I see him almost about every day, and I'm really close with my sister, and he loves dinosaurs. He's so into dinosaurs right now, and so. Recently, I took him to this dinosaur exhibit. It was this Jurassic World exhibit, right? And they're like these life-size dinosaurs, and he's really smart. He's like that's a Cepiosaurus, that's a Spinosaurus. He's like, I think he's really smart. He knows how dumb his uncle is, that he could stick an asaurus onto the end of anything, It's like, this is a pencilosaurus. I'm like, wow, you are so smart, all this other stuff. But anyway, so I'm taking him through this exhibit, and we're going through this one portion. And he's in my arms. I'm holding him, and we've got to go across this bridge, right? And I could see the other side to go outside, right? I could see the other side, but to cross this bridge, there's these 2 velociraptors that are on each side, right? They're animatronics, so they're laying on, they're snatching whatever, and he's holding on to me really tight, and he says, "Uncle, I'm scared." And I said, "I know you are, buddy, but I can see the other side, and you're going to be okay." And I walked us through. And that's my relationship with God today, God's carrying me wherever I go. And when I get scared, I just hold on to God a little tighter. And I say, "God, I'm scared." And God says, "I know you are, buddy, but I could see the other side, and you're going to be okay." Manhattan Beach, I want to thank you all for having me out. Thank you so much.
What a wonderful, wonderful message. Give it up one more time, Mike. Thank you, thank you.